Ma'am, can Mahua ma'am, can we start that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Information is not knowledge. The only source of knowledge is experience. You need experience to gain wisdom. A very good afternoon to respected Director FMS IRM, Dr. Jessie John Ma'am, Deputy Director FMS IRM, Dr. Tarjini Goyal Ma'am, our eminent Chief Speaker, Ms. Mahua Roy Choudhury, Project Coordinator Governance and Knowledge Management, Bihar Rural Livelihoods Promotion Society, Jeevika, all the talented faculty members and my fellow mates. I, Tanvi Gupta, a PGDM student of FMS IRM, would like to extend my heartiest welcome to you all in the Corporate Talk series. FMS IRM is ranked a triple plus among India's top B schools and first among the best B schools of Rajasthan. FMS IRM has a proud legacy of advancing the careers of students and transforming organizations towards a better tomorrow. Corporate Talk series is a step taken by FMS IRM to help students get an insight of the corporate world. In these series, professionals from different domains share their experiences and provide the students with the learning. It is indeed my great pleasure to welcome among us an esteemed speaker of the evening, Ms. Mahua Roy Choudhury, a certified counselor from the Indian Psychoanalytical Society, an experienced chief executive officer with a demonstrated history of working in the research industry. Her expertise include corporate social responsibility, program evaluation, rural development, knowledge management, and non-governmental organizations. Her strong believes in empathy and follows an eclectic humanitarian approach in all her works. Her research works are published in well-reputed international journals, magazines, and blogs. The way her practice and preach gratitude and appreciation is rewarding to help others in all the ways she can. Now, I would like to invite respected Deputy Director FMS IRM, Dr. Tarjini Goyal Ma'am, for the official welcome of the chief guest.
Thank you so much, Tanvi. Very good evening to one and all. It is my heartiest pleasure, basically, to welcome you all, the young fellow students here, faculty members, and most privileged to welcome Ms. Mahua here. Ma'am, basically, to introduce the students about the CSR framework, it moreover gives a liveliness to the activities that the corporate people have been doing. Moreover, they provide the sustainable development aspect to the society at large, delivering economic, social, and economic other benefits to the society. And I think we have the right person who would be, deliberating and would be sharing their knowledge and with us, Ma'am Mahua. Ma'am Mahua, it is my honor and privilege to welcome officially to FMS IRM, though virtually, but we are welcoming you to this momentous evening wherein you would be sharing the experience, your personal experience with the students. I once again welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to request our prestigious chief guest to take the session further and enlighten us with her experiences. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the kind words. Thank you for this opportunity to share my experiences with the fellow students. Yes, so right. So I would take you through this entire process of impact assessment, baseline survey, and CSR framework. So when I talk through my experiences to you, my major impetus would be on why impact assessment or why baseline survey is continuously being a very important tool for any sort of a CSR activity. I remember to have participated in another talk with IRM. I don't know whether you are the same batch of students. So there very clearly I had mentioned that in the development sector, either in the corporate social responsibility areas or the core, developmental programs being undertaken by government. One word is now the buzzword, and that is return on investment. So every funder or every corporate house, as they enter their profit margins, are now starting to assess the also the investment or the social impact of their investment into the various developmental programs. Now, in this session, I would like to take you through some of the tools of impact assessment and also baseline survey. I would also like to take you through some of the examples that we have of some baseline survey. Now, these examples range from health to agriculture interventions. And I'll also talk a bit about the CSR framework. So I'd like to have this session a little interactive. So you can stop, you can ask questions in between, or if you wish to, you can also reserve your questions to be asked at the end. So it's as per your choice. So if you see the first slide or the first page, you see pictures. Now these pictures, can we go back to the previous slide? Yes. So if you see the pictures, this very clearly talks about interventions or the various activities that has been taken up through various projects. Now you can see on the left hand corner, health and nutrition integration in self-help groups through effective ICT. So communication behavior aspect, this is one input that is being given to the rural areas so they can be informed about their health and nutrition aspects. The next thing that you can see is transforming crop value chain and linking the rural farmers with the market chain. So this is another intervention. Now, enhancing capacities on technologies for goat promotion. Then you can also see agri-mechanization programs. So all these are inputs. Now, what is the impact of this input? Did the health improve? Did did farmers get richer by selling their products in a better and get good returns of their product? Did goat promotion help improve the livelihood of the people, or did the goat health improve? Did agri mechanization increase the productivity and hence increase double the income of the farmers? So these are various inputs, and these are all investments made by the government and various other corporate bodies. But is it making any sense? Is it making any sort of social impact in the area? So that is what we need to assess and understand today. In the center page, you see a cover page of India Today, and you find a rural women out there. So from all these interventions, she is being portrayed in the cover page of India Today. That's a immense amount of recognition that rural women has got. So is this recognition can be measured or can be talked about as a social impact, or is all the social impact to be measured on a monetary term or to be measured in terms of return on investment? Does this particular empowerment of this rural women by getting featured in the India Today cover page gives immense dignity to that particular lady? How do you measure it? So we need to understand the measurables and non-measurables and try to understand the impact that the various development programs are making to the society. So this particular session will uh, take you through all these aspects. I'll try to uh, give you a systematic approach to measure all these impacts. So next slide, please. So why measure impacts? Again, are you managing with metrics or you're managing without metrics? If you're managing with metrics, you are able to understand whether you're making progress, whether the increased value, whether there is an increased value for business and society, is your program running more efficiently, whether it is easier to manage, you're improving your stakeholder relationships and other things. These are being gauged into a proper metric form. But if you're not managing with metrics, then you're totally disoriented. You do not know where to go. You're totally confused. You don't know whether the value or for business or society is increasing or not increasing, whether the program is being implemented efficiently or not efficiently. And that is the reason you need to measure impact. Next slide. Where are you going? These are the questions that you need to ask. Why do you want to get there? How can you track progress? How do you optimize a positive impact? So these are the various questions that you need to ask when you are starting to basically even frame your impact assessment tools. Next slide. So what is a social impact? So social impact is the known and unknown effects or changes due to a program, service, policy, or any other initiative on individual, society, and environment. So here there are various effects that can happen in the program. So this is a known and unknown effect. So a program or a project can help anybody or may indirectly not help anybody. A service in an area might improve the economic status of that particular area. If you open a rural bank in a rural setup, that particular local economy starts accessing all the financial services from that bank, and it is supposed so that there is a local economy development happening. But is it actually happening? Whom are they impacting? Whom are they servicing? Are everybody getting the services or not? So these are the known and unknown effects or changes which is happening in the society whenever you are giving an input into that particular area. And that is why this picture of ripple. So when you just throw a small pebble in the water, there is a ripple. That same thing happens in the society as well. So you come up with a small program or a small service delivery aspect, it has ripples. No matter how big the ripple is or small the ripple is, there is a ripple in the society. So a policy can also bring a change amongst the people. It can bring a positive change or a negative change. Like in Bihar, if you go by Bihar, Bihar has announced a total prohibition. Now, people who were engaged into liquor making has got severely affected because of this policy. They have lost their livelihoods. So there was a negative as well as a positive impact in that particular society. So that is what we need to work on. Same, it happens in the environment, it happens to an individual or a society. So that is what is social impact. Next. So why measure a social impact? Do we really need to measure impact? Actually, who cares whether you are measuring whether there's an impact or not? The people who care for this are the public funders, the people who are supporting you or helping you with the finances or the budget, the foundations who are providing various funding allocations to run a program. They need to demonstrate accountability. These particular impact measurement helps in securing funding from donors and also helps in smooth running of the program. So most of the project starts with a pilot. Now, if you are successful with the pilot, then you scale up the program. So how do you assess whether your pilot has been successful or not? You measure impact. So private investors supports the selection suitable investments that align with their values and interests. Social enterprises, they obtain funding, demonstrate accountability, inform program delivery strategies, and of course, the community. It is of great value to them. They want to feel a part of the process. Now, this is something that we need to understand here, is that community would not allow to intervene unless they get benefit out of the program. So over the years, when the digital revolution has been so obvious, we find that our communities are getting more aware and more informed, and they would also like to be a part of the process. And if you are not involving the community, you might not be able to have any impact in that particular community or the society. So this is the reason, these are the very, very strong reason why you need to measure impact. Next slide. So there are a chain of activities that happens. So you basically put input, that is resources invested in the activity. Then there are activities like action that is taken to support an impact or an objective. You have outputs which are measurable, and you have outcomes which you might not be able to measure, but it's what has changed for the stakeholders, which comes over a period of time. So this is the change process theory of change, or this is the impact value chain that we usually talk of when we are impacting measurement and reporting change. Next slide. So again, what is the theory of change? Let us try to understand this. Next slide. So there are various challenges when we are trying to measure the impact, because there's no standardization. There are tools, but there is no standardization to those tools. So agriculture program would have a different follow a different impact measurement tool, and a health program would follow a different measurement tool. Now, so you don't have very standardized processes, so no one size fits all. So you have to keep on learning and experimenting various tools to actually come out with the right impact measurement processes. So that is why impact is not a one-time thing that we do. We keep on try to build in certain processes within the project, where you are continuously getting a feedback whether you're going on the right track, whether the progress is going on in the right pace or not. So that is why there's no standardization. That's a challenge. There's a difficulty to compare programs across sectors. As I said, that health sector programs will be very different from the livelihood sector programs. So these are certain difficulties. Impact measurement is always time consuming. There is no formal definition of measurement. Now, how even measuring poverty is a big debate and a discourse all across the developmental academics. So that's another challenge. It's time consuming. Many a times you don't have a baseline. Understanding what type of data to use is also sometimes confusing. Misunderstanding of outputs versus impacts, because you are not the only person who is giving input to that particular society. So it becomes very much difficult to understand that whether the outputs or the impacts have been because of the intervention, or there were other actors playing in that particular area, and that is why the outputs and impacts have been in such a manner. Varying definition of impact, that's another challenge. So how do we overcome all these challenges? Next slide. In order to measure and report impact, we must understand the full picture. So we need to understand that we need to also take the positive and the negative changes. It could be that you might not have intended for certain change through your programs, but that has happened. So you need to see beyond the picture. You need to unfold the realities, which is, read through the lines. Don't ignore the bad stuff. It might be that your programs might have not impacted positively to all. So let us also understand what has been the negative impact. Understand and manage the displacement impact. It could be that because of your program, some of them got displaced. So what is that displacement impact? As investors or funders, you need to also understand where the money is going. So this is another financial components that you need to understand while measuring impact uh, of any project. So next slide. So what do you need to consider? So as I told you, yeah, is this is there a question, or is there a question?
No, ma'am, I think we can continue the same.
Okay, great. So don't skip the unintended changes that I again and again am pinpointing at. Don't ignore the bad stuff, and you need to report and also manage the report, because you need to present the impact in front of your funders. So when you are reporting, you have to talk about the non-intended changes, but in a very diplomatic and a smart manner. So next slide. So who are the stakeholders that are directly linked to your project? Who are your customers? Do you know them? Do they know you? These are certain questions that you need to answer while considering or planning for the impact. To measure, you need data. And from where can you get data? You can get data from the community by involving them. And also you have to get data of human beings. Can you gather data without knowing whom are you serving? So you need to build a very strong relationship with your stakeholders. And that is the key when you are going for impact measurement. So when I talk about various tools of impact measurement, you'll find there's a lot of one-to-one interaction. Now, when you are having a one-to-one interaction, and if your relationship is not good enough, then you might not be able to gather the right sort of data. So that can again give you a very false impression of out your project, or false, not the right sort of a data that would be shown in front of you. So next slide. Yes, as I told you, that data gathering has to be a co-created process. So you need to involve communities and stakeholders and you need to tell them that you are co-planning with them, and they need to feel right from the beginning that it's their impact that you are trying to assess, or their progress in various areas is what you are trying to assess. So if you are not having a good relationship or a rapport with them, and not involving them into the entire impact assessment processes, then you might end up gathering very not good data. Yeah, next. Here again, we need to understand is that you need to understand the complexity of the community. So you need to also understand, as I told you earlier, also there could be other actors working in that particular community where your program is running. So you might end up finding out that all the impact that has happened in that area is not attributed to the project that you are running. Maybe it is because of some external factors or because of the other programs running in that particular area. So how do we curb that sort of a process? So are there other competing businesses, small entrepreneurs, foundations delivering products and services similar to your project? Can partnerships be created? So the ultimate aim is to improve the community's impact or community situations. Now, if you are running a health program and there are other agencies which are also running some health programs, you need to collaborate with them, you need to partner with them. And once you partner with them, what happens is you are becoming more stronger. Now, why you're becoming more stronger? Because you have better human resource then, because you can't have expertise in all areas. So there would be other agencies who have human resource of various uh, expertise, and you can tap those expertise in your programs also. Similarly, they can tap your expertise in their programs as well. So the ultimate aim is to create more ripples, and through these partnerships you can yield more social impact and you can have more ripples in that particular community. So this is a small formula where you see that positive net impact is equal to outcomes minus what would have happened anyway without you minus displacement effects created. So even if that project was not running, there would be other actors or other agencies already functioning there. So or some initiatives or external factors. So that is one particular area which you have to negate out, and also negate out the displacement or the negative impacts of your project. So that will basically give you the positive net impact of your project. Yeah, do we have any questions till now?
I think
Good af-
we'll take
good
the
afternoon,
questions in the
ma'am.
later half.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So next slide, please. Yeah. So you need to understand is that when you're talking of impact, you are also talking of behaviors, human beings and their behaviors. You are talking of the known and the unknown as well. We often forget to tap, which is difficult to, measure. Like the known impact you see, touch and hear, but some of the unknown impact is feel. Like what I was talking in the opening slide, that the feeling of that feeling of happiness to have been on a front page of a leading journal is something which you can't measure. It's of immense dignity to that particular lady, a very poor lady. Now this is a feeling which cannot be measured in very easily, and it can also not be gauged unless you have a very strong relationship with that particular lady. When she says that it was so uh, uh, rewarding for her when her father-in-law was going across the villages and saying that his daughter-in-law has featured on the front page of India Today. So this is something that you need to gauge, and that is why you need to make this relationship with your stakeholders, with the community in a bigger way, to understand that these are the other impacts that a project has brought in. Now it has not a must for that lady to feature in the front page. She might have done some real good job, and that is why India Today uh, featured her story. Now, she was a lady who was always inside a house and not allowed to go out for anything. she has got minimal education. She studied only till 8th, but she has come out of her house and she has helped educating others in areas of health and nutrition, and she has also influenced other SHG women to take up small to start self-help groups and go to the banks and negotiate with the banks for credit, and also have impacted lives of many such women like her. So this lady whose photo you have seen there is from a minority community where burqa was one thing that she had to wear in her society. But when she was trained to give training, she had to do a lot of convincing in her family that she can't give training on burqa, so she can't wear a burqa. So she was said that if you are going out of the societal norms, then her husband threatened her to divorce her. But she has been able to convince her society, convince her family, and she has been able to reach there. So how do you assess this particular change in her behavior? How do you assess this particular change in her entire empowering process? So it's not always seeing or touching. You have to feel it, and if you can't feel it, then maybe you have to feel it. You'll have to have a very strong relationship with your community, and do not escape when you are making your plan for impact. Don't miss out on these small aspects. We'll tell you later that which are the tools in which you can measure impact of behavior. Okay, so next slide. Yeah. So, what are the suitable indicators of impact measurement? So here again, you could talk of reduction in social isolation, new social activities engaged by participants, feeling a sense of influence. I have influence in the decisions made in my community, feeling a sense of belonging. An improvement in health is the number of visits that they make to the doctor, number of instances of health ailment, symptoms reported, and things like that. So now, very importantly, you saw a picture where a lady is actually holding a it's called a reaper. It's an agri machinery which they use. Usually in rural Bihar, you have only men operating it. You don't find females operating it. So this new social activities is that they are now engaging into those areas where those tasks were predominantly engaged by males. Sorry for that. Yeah. So can we take up the next slide? So when you are considering for an impact assessment or impact measurement, then you need to develop a guiding principle or a common practice, which might be uh, very sacrosanct of your organization. Many organizations have their own own guiding principles to assess their own mm, impacts. So you have to either follow the organization norms or you can develop your own. You can influence the organization to add up something new which you feel should be added, or allow for enough time and funding that will enable measurement. Okay, listening to the community, understand, and these are, as I told you, these are all very time consuming. So when you are doing this, you need to keep into account of the budget, you need to keep an account of the time, you need to keep in account of the human resources that you have to take up this impact measurement processes. listen to the community, understand what they value. Indicators can be agreed upon between stakeholders. Understand your program's theory of change. What are you trying to change? Why does it matter? Develop a governance structure, a social impact committee to provide uh, input or to provide feedback to the government and the evaluation processes. So these are the major big points that I just told you, but then for each and every point, you need to develop a plan how you would do it. If you are talking of listen to the community, then you have to chalk it out that how many visits would you make, how many, what would be your research, arena, how many people will you really talk, and then you budget time, then you budget money on it, then understand your program's theory of change. What is the uh, indicators that you need to change at the beginning of the program? What were the expectations, that what would that project actually impact upon? Now what was the theory of change? Now you have to try to understand whether that theory of change really worked in the area where you intervened the project. Okay, so next slide. You have to consider the stage of growth. Previous slide. Of your organization, social enterprises, before investing in an impact measurement. What it will be worth it? Early stage social enterprises, consider the cost, leveraging on existing data and relationship. What data do you have already? Consider having a baseline data. So all these things are very important. So you might have some baseline data. It might not have been done by your organization, but you might get a baseline data of that particular area where you're working being done by any other agency. So you can consider that. You can source a lot of secondary data to understand various aspects. You can also talk to various other agencies working in that area to actually develop your guiding principles. Yes, next slide. Common impact data sources, like you can go for customer or stakeholder centric surveys, you can do focus group, you can do action oriented research, you can also see the existing program records. You might have a monitoring and evaluation team within you. You might have a MIS system, so you can check what is the progress happening everywhere. You can go for interviews, data matching with other organizations, public economic data. You can also refer to the journals and research papers. So these are some common impact data sources from where you can take those data and develop your own plan. Yeah, next slide, please. Yes, of course, the financial value creation, that is very, very important. It is very difficult to understand whether the household income has really increased or not unless you have a very strong relationship with your stakeholders. It is almost very, very difficult to get whether the income has improved or not. Then to assess that, you go by expenditure. So if at the baseline their expenditure was 100 rupees, so at the end line did their expenditure go up to 500 rupees, that then you can understand that if they are making an expenditure of 500 rupees, so there has been a increase in income. So increased individual or household income is something which is not very easy to gauge, but then there are processes to understand it and then find out that. Future cost avoidance, cost reallocation, cost savings, capacity building, these are the other areas where you need to focus upon. Yeah, next slide, please. So combining all these aspects, you need to give your key learnings, which is a common practice. You have to say that when you are talking about the entire measuring the entire impact, you might have felt that at the start of the program we missed on certain areas. Maybe this, if these areas were considered, so we could add up another component in the project design. So these could be your key learnings. So please jot down the key learnings, and you have to give the key learnings so that further when you make another program or project, then you keep into account these particular points. Okay, so next slide. So what is the project? Now I'm little bit shifting from the impact and trying to understand the project management components, because most of the impact actually is actually coming from the project components. You from the project management components, the outcomes and the impact. So what are the project management components? First is the problem identification. You need to identify the problem and change the situation or improve the situation. So you are first identifying the problem. Then you are planning for improving the situation. You are having a project framework, log frame, goal, purpose. You might have gone through various sessions on logical framework designing. So you plan the entire project, and then you carry out the project, you execute project, you inputs, you start certain activities, and then you try to get into some specific project outputs which is already designed in your plan. And because of this you have some outcomes, or these activities or project outputs basically results into outcomes, and there is a improved situation. So this is the cycle that you follow. And till now I was talking about the impact, but try to understand that this is the entire process which you have done to reach here, and now you're trying to understand what the impact is. So can we move on to the next slide? Yeah, so I just wanted to give you an example of a hygiene promotion project cycle. So what happened is you started with a rapid assessment planning, you did implementation, which means you identified and trained volunteers, used mass media, you distributed hygiene items, you also designed initial communication plan, developed a lot of ICT materials, and also disseminated them, and from different platforms using mass media, using your own one-to-one channels, or social media channels to basically educate people on hygiene. And then then you do a baseline survey. So what was there and how do you go ahead with it? Then the entire implementation or communication plan is done. Then you keep on monitoring whether whatever you have planned, you are doing it on time or not. What are the key areas of monitoring? How have the entire processes or communication materials that you are airing or disseminating, how much are they being accepted? How much of them are using the hygiene items? What are the facilities that are in use? Whether the hand washing processes are being followed or not? What is the feedback to the community? So you are keeping on monitoring and evaluating, and you are continuously going through this entire cycle from one area to the other area. So when you are talking of hygiene, then it's a broad term. Then you are talking of uh, child hygiene, you are talking of adult hygiene, and then for each and every stakeholder that you are trying to deal with, you are trying to uh, f- uh, plan a framework in this manner. And for different age groups, you are trying to do that entire process. So this continuously happens during the project cycle. You make course corrections in between when you get feedback from the community, and you also keep on changing your tools to do these things. So here you are doing baseline, you are doing on the you can say a process monitoring sort of a thing. In between, when you are implementing the project itself, you are you are getting a lot of feedback and you are making course corrections, and this all attribute to the final impact of the project. Yeah, next slide please. So many times you need to collect data in emergency. So how do you do this? Now I am giving you this example from a health project per se. So many a times, like in COVID situation, you need to collect data in emergency. How do you collect data in very uh, emergent situation? So you go for rapid assessment, you do baseline data, and you do a further analysis. You don't take a very huge sample size. You try to take small sample size and do rapid assessments over here. So these are the processes of data collection in emergency periods. And this is a very common thing when you are doing in the health and hygiene sector. Yeah, next. So these are the 3 stages. You do an assessment. Now, based on the assessment, you identify the problem. Now, what is the assessment? Processes aimed at understanding the situation after a major change. It provides information about the needs, possible intervention types, and resources requirements. Now, you have an assessment checklist to do this assessment. And then what are the methods that you are taking for? You can do a structured observation. You can do an exploratory walks. You can even have an interview schedule to assess things. Then you again go for baseline survey, and again on the baseline survey you do an analysis and description of situation prior to the start of the operation. You first assess the situation. This assessment one, number one, stage one, you are assessing the situation, and based on this assessment you are identifying the problem, and based on the problem you are doing the baseline survey on the problem areas. Analysis and description of the situation prior to the start of the operation against which change can be assessed or compared. So it again you use baseline survey or questionnaire tools, and you go for household interview, direct observation, focus group discussion to do this, and then you go for further analysis. And this analysis again is a process which is aimed at understanding the social and cultural dynamics within the community. So you might do an assessment and a baseline, but if you don't understand the community's culture, then maybe the project that you're designing might not fall in place. So it provides information about the people's beliefs and thought processes. You can use various methods here. So the next slide. So when you are going for a baseline survey, it's an analysis and description of a situation prior to the operation against which can be assessed or compared. uh, Comparisons can be made. So baseline survey provides a benchmark for your program objectives. So it is a very important work prior to the project implementation, that once you have assessed the identified the problem, you have finalized what you would like to work on, you have already designed the project based on your assessment on your the 3 stages that I talked of, and then you are basically taking indicators from the baseline survey on what are the indicators that I would like to work on. And if it is at, say, for example, if I go for an example where I'm saying that, okay, the literacy level among 6 to 16 years age of children is now at 30%. For males, it is 30%. For females, it is much lower, 20%. So with this program, what I'm trying to do is I would try to help enroll people in the schools. So the literacy level, and it's a 3 years program, and the literacy level that I'm targeting at is, for males, it would have to go up to 35%, and amongst girls, it might have to go up to 25%. So this benchmark is something that you need to understand. So where are we now? And at the end of the project, with the inputs that you give, with the various interventions that you make, where would you like to reach to? And then you can have simpler benchmarks, and also you have difficult benchmarks. Some benchmarks are very difficult to achieve. Even 3 years time might not be enough for that. So how you are also here doing short-term goals and long-term goals. So all these things help you to design the project when your baseline service is there with you. So this is the three situations that I talked of here. Situation A is a disaster situation, and in this situation, most of the information is secondary data information referred to the situation before the disaster. Situation B registered by assessment data and baseline survey, and situation C is the follow-up of the survey. So these are the various stages or situations in which your baseline can continuously help you to improve your program and fix up your goals. Yeah, next slide, please. So there's a timeline to data collection. You can't go endless for baseline survey. So it might be, you add up too many indicators to understand what other data that is required to be collected for baseline survey. When you dig further, you get more data, and then that again increases your appetite for knowing more, and then it goes endless. But then you have to plan it in a very systematic manner. So week one, if it is a disaster or an emergency situation, do a rapid assessment, provides general information about needs, possible intervention types, and resource requirements. I give you an example here. During COVID, we used a lot of IVR based assessments. What we used to do is that we had a repository of phone numbers of our SHG members. So we called them and tried to do a systematic IVR with them to understand only 10 questions, and also the questions were like, you select from, press 1 for this, press 1 for yes, press 2 for no. So do you need food? Yes. Have you got tested for COVID? Yes, no. Press 1 for yes, press no for 2. So this sort of rapid assessment you need to do. Now you can't send people in the field for survey in such emergency situations. So what we did here is we took help of the IVR method. We had these phone numbers and we called our SHG members of a certain area, and we had the entire data with us. Okay, so in this particular village, there is a tremendous need, a shortage of food. So we need to open up community kitchens and we need to send food out there. So immediately rapid assessment you need to do. And in a disaster situation, you do rapid assessment and you have to service immediately. So this is what we need to do. A month long talks of detailed assessment. Now these detailed assessment takes into account the various chronological events that is happening. This 1 month's time, what has happened, what are the various critical situations that can arise when a similar type of a disaster attacks. So you keep on gauging that, and it gives a more detailed sectorial information about needs, possible intervention types, and resource requirements. And then there's a continuous process. So if there is a chance of a continuous, like Bihar, you have floods on a regular basis. So there are certain information which is continuously being taken up by the disaster management department. So there are certain continual assessments happening, but there is some shocks are such that you are totally unaware of, you know not. So you have to go for rapid assessment, detailed assessment for 1 month, and then you might set in 1 or 2 indicators for which you have to do continual assessment. So this is another way of data collection timeline. Now, baseline survey, monitor the effect of the program intervention, and further analysis helps you work better. Yeah, next slide. Information collection methods in emergency, quantitative data, qualitative data. I'll not go into details. I know you have studied research methodologies, so you would know what is qualitative methods and what are quantitative methods. So next slide. So again, as I told you, that rapid assessment, when you are going for a rapid assessment, you have to do a structured observation, you have to do interviews, you do group interview, you do individual interview, how do you do household interview. Now here, in a disaster situation, when you are not aware of anything and you are not in that disaster prone area, so you have to keep your ears wide open. You need to know and get information from the people who are actually facing that particular situation. Okay, so this is for rapid assessment. Next slide. You have to be a very good observer. You have to start from a very you have to have a starting point which is very good. Look around and talk to people, qualitative and quantitative data, walk through the area with local facilities, discussion as the atmosphere is informal, observation is useful for cross-checking, excellent way to come upon unexpected information. So when you engage with the community, you get to know more. So here you need to do that. You need to engage with people, understand and talk to them more. So here more of qualitative data matters, but of course all qualitative and not quantitative can also be very thin. Okay, so the next slide please. Yes, these are certain tools of group interviews, individual interviews. So that is the you can look at it. Next slide please. Yeah, so these are the baseline survey. So we'll run through these slides a little faster. Focus group discussion. You are well aware about focus group discussion, so I will not talk about it much. The next slide. Yes, you know about random sampling, so I'll not talk about this again. Next.
And your voice is not clear. It's getting some disturbance.
Okay. I think somebody's mic is on, and that is the thing. Am I clear now?
Yes, ma'am. You're
Okay,
clear now.
so focus group discussion, we can just skip on. Go to the next slide, please. Random sampling, we can skip on. You are aware of what a random sampling is. If you, please tell me if I have to explain. So I'm directly coming to examples. Now this is an example of a study report on multi-sector convergence project in Saharsa district. Now Saharsa district is one of the districts in Bihar, and this is on the health and nutrition aspects. So here on the behavior change communication program, which Jeevika runs with our SHG members, this study was done by a third party, you know about CARE India. They did this study. There's a CARE India study and this is a IFPRI study report also, which says that the percentage of children achieving minimum dietary diversity. Now, what is dietary diversity? Like 4 groups out of 7. It is said that in your diet, you need to have, at least in your daily diet, you need to have food from 7 food groups. So that makes a balanced diet. Now from 6 months to 23 months, this is a very important thing. And in rural areas, people actually do not give more of food groups. You know, they stick to only one food group or others. So you see the blue line, the orange line, the blue line and the green line. So here baseline comparison arm. So blue line is the baseline comparison arm, which was 20.9. And in the end line comparison, it came to 54.4. Now this is an area 20.9 and 54.4 was of the entire universe, like of the entire Saharsa district. Now baseline treatment arm and endline treatment arm. We went for an intervention in certain pockets of Saharsa, in certain blocks of Saharsa. And when we went for the treatment area, so in the treatment area, the baseline was at 24.1%, and at the end line it came up to 61.9. So this is something that you are measuring, that how many food groups people are basically trying to have when there is an intervention, when you are continuously going for behavior change, communication, and then there are processes I would not talk about. It is very difficult to assess how many, food groups you are having in your food in a daily diet, but then there has been an entire process to gauge that. So we have community nutrition resource persons who are making home visits, who are seeing that what is the food that they are having on a daily basis. Let's get back to the slide. Example 1, the previous slide. Yeah, so this is what it shows. So percentage of women achieving minimum dietary diversity is again marginal change has happened in the baseline comparison arm. But if you go by in the treatment arm, there's a substantial difference that you see. So in the entire district, the actual figures would have changed very minimally. See, from 34.2 to 35.3. But in certain blocks where the treatment has been done, it has changed by 20 points. So you need to understand this in a very proper manner. And for this, you need to design programs. Similarly, in the complementary feeding processes also, there has been a lot of change that was visible in the treatment areas and in the non-treatment areas. So randomized controlled survey is another very important survey process which has been promoted by the Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee, where we are doing a survey of a control block and a treatment block. Control block is those area where you have not gone for the intervention, and treatment block is that area where you have gone for the intervention. So what is the change? In the control where no intervention has been done, so what is the indicator showing after 3 years? So or after the project period. So, and in the treatment area, what has been the change? So you can simply assess. So here you can simply say that it has been you and you alone which has made a change in that particular treatment area, because the control and the treatment area, you have the other actors working in that particular area very similar. So this is another tool that you can take up. So example 2, I'll just run through it. I know we are short of time. Next slide. It's about an impact evaluation in Sri Lanka. And there is certain general project information. Skip that. This is an agriculture and livestock development program. So let's go to the next slide. What was the criteria and data? So primary data collection was done, mixed method approach was used, collaboration was done. Here again, I said that partnerships are very much required. So a lot of collaborations happened in this particular project. So next slide. Again, here the methodology was that there was a baseline done in 2006, but the entire data set got lost. So this also happens when the baseline survey data gets lost. How do you measure the impact? So again, in this situation, in this case, this has happened. So, but what they did is project targeted poorer communities and household sampling bias was done. Farmer household characteristics can affect participation in project. That was a sampling bias. Economic growth and poverty reduction in Sri Lanka during last 10 years. So these were the secondary data that was taken up. Multi-components were also assessed, different impact pathways, difficult to capture through standardized questionnaire. So all these aspects were taken into consideration. So next slide. The approach that was followed, these were the challenges, and the approach that was followed is data recall. So from the baseline data, again, reconstructing from the baseline data, econometric techniques were used. So these propensity score matching, these are some econometric techniques, which again needs another session to talk about. So these are Heckman treatment effect and also propensity score matching effect. So these were followed. Cross validation was another qualitative and quantitative. That was another approach that was followed. So next slide. This was the program area. So let's move to the next slide. So how did the statistical analysis done? Pro-poor geographical targeting was done. Household with project having poorer asset base, more diversified cropping patterns, slightly better educational status of household. All these things were the project targeting uh, data. Next slide. So there are certain impact that came up. Impact survey finds that farmers are better aware of improved techniques. Knowledge and awareness is there, but that is not always converting into adoption. Initial investment cost can be a barrier and farmers require extended technical support. So what they are saying that people, because of this project, a lot of farmers know about improved techniques, but they are not adopting it because they don't have the capital investment that needs to be done for practicing the improved techniques. So this is a feedback that is again going to say that there new projects or new programs needs to be done, or something needs to be done for converting the knowledge into adoption. So these are various things that I wanted to talk to, that how an impact can help bringing in more impact. Yeah, next slide, please. So these are various impacts. Next slide. Yeah, I think you can read through, and if you have any questions, you can ask at the end. Next slide, please. Yeah, apart from the direct impact of the agriculture, best practices or improved agriculture techniques, there were other aspects also: the gender equality part, the partnership upscaling part, the multiple innovations that happened in the program, moderately, which were the areas which can be moderately sustainable. So these are the other softer parts of the entire project impact which needs to be captured. Okay, so the next slide, please. And the impact study also had recommendations for the future. So need for a follow-up phase to consolidate results, promote linkages with existing value chains, support farmers, federations, avoid subsidized credits, advocacy on policy issues needs to continue, commitments to provide financial contribution to revolve funds, better accuracy and quality control in M&E is required. So these were the recommendations made for this project. So when the project ends, it also is a new beginning for multiplying the change or multiplying the ripple effect. So you have already created a ripple, but then if that ripple needs to sustain, then you need more inputs to be given to that particular area. And that is why when you are doing one impact, you come out with a recommendation for the future as well. So the next slide. Yes, as I was mentioning, that it is very important to also mention about uh, uh, the lessons learned. So these are the various lessons learned, and what are the various lessons that that particular organization which was implementing the program, so what lessons did they learn? So that needs to be shared so the other agency also do not make the same mistakes. Okay, so the next slide, please. So that was another example. Now the emerging issues, now we are also trying to gauge, apart from the project framework or project progress framework, or when you are designing project, you already have a logical framework, you assess the progress and other things. But two major things which are very much coming up in the in the newer times, in present times, is each and every funding agency is now asking for social progress index. So what has been the change in the GDP in the society, or how much did the SDGs factors affect? So these are the social progress index and ecological footprint. Now this is another area, that did your project what type of ecological footprint did it leave? Now, if you have talked about improved techniques of paddy, did you also say that paddy is a crop which, you know, which throws a lot of carbon? So what are the alternative crops that you're talking of? Did you make aware of the farmers that there's a ecological crisis if you are not, or a climate change issue if you are doing more of paddy in a particular area? So all these ecological footprint is certain things that now the funding agencies are asking for to gauge and also make a part of the impact assessment. So next slide. What is the circular economy? Whether that particular local economy is improving or not improving, is that particular area creating some natural capital as well? So these are other emerging issues and trends which, you know, most of the funding agencies are now asking for. Yes, the next slide please. Yeah, ready for questions. It was a long presentation, no?
Good evening, ma'am. Hi, this side Dr. Surpi Mathur. It is a really very interesting and enlightening session as we have so many students here. So we have second semester students as well, those who have research as their core subject, and we have rural management specialization student as well. So I'm very much sure that with your detailed explanations about the baseline surveys and CSR entirely framework, they all are immensely benefited, and as they are been involved in so many projects right now, and going further they'll be involving in the internship projects as well. So I'm very much sure the uh, feedback, the kind of your experience, the knowledge sharing that has been given by you are surely taken up by them in their future different research projects. So now I invite a few students to ask the questions from the mem. So who will be the first person to ask here? Monica?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead,
yeah.
please.
Ma'am, I would like to ask one question that how does any corporation define its community? Like what kind of CSR activities that are fit in the corporation's mission?
Okay. So usually what happens is many CSRs, what they do is they define their area and where they are working. So most of the corporate houses, they it again depends upon what is the company working on. If the company is on, you know, steel making or extraction of or doing some mine work or something that sort, they will cater to the rural population. But again, there is corporates like Tatas who work in urban areas, but then they have a huge number of laborers who work in their particular plants and also factories. So they again, their social responsibility is towards those employers or employees of theirs or the laborers of theirs, so that their education, their family's education or their family's well-being is what then becomes their target groups. So it again depends upon the company's entire uh, mission and vision, you know, or the work that they are doing, whom are they impacting upon, whom they are working with. So most of the corporates majorly work in the areas where like I said you, like if you are talking of a corporate social responsibility of coal fields, so they would be majorly working with those areas, in those areas, or identifying those communities where they have this minories in, and also catering to the population which are working in their mines. Okay, so that is a very different, that is very specific to the companies ways of functioning or companies' deliverables. Yes.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
So who is the next one to ask? Tanvi?
Yes, ma'am. A very good evening, ma'am. So my question is that according to you, what are the most critical ethical issues in the business today?
Come again, please. The last two
What
words.
are the most critical ethical issues in the corporate or the business today?
Okay. So the ethical issues are many. So many a times it is not very sustainable. It's not inclusive. You know, when you are only trying to help those families who are working for your company, you are excluding many in the villages. So when you are basically going for a, a development project in a village, you cannot pick and choose. So this is some of the things that many, I would not say all corporates do, but many corporates do. But then you have certain regulations coming in by the government to curb all these aspects. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Do we have Abhishek here? Abhishek Parik? I think he has not been here. Anyone from the RM students who need to ask, as the topic has been moreover related to your domain, guys. So do ask, do uh, pretend your inquisitiveness here in front of ma'am. So you can you have this opportunity to ask a number of questions that you won't be getting often. So I now request all the RM students specifically to ask their queries, especially the students who are in the fourth semester who are about to join their fields. Uh, anyone?
Before they ask, can I ask some questions?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ma'am, I would like to have mentioned about metrics that can be used in impact assessment. So can you elaborate a bit on that? Like what are the kind of metrics that can be used, or there are some common metrics that are used, or it depends upon the organization?
See, it again depends upon the organization and also upon the project. So not many projects, you know, you can use various metrics which are very strongly talked about. But then again, it has to align with your project. You can't use all the metrics because, see, when you are doing a development project, where measuring impact is not a very easy thing to do. So you have to align and pick which are the metrics that can help you. You need to also redesign your own econometrics. You need to redesign your own formula, because I can give you example. I will share with Jessie ma'am some links. So we are doing a World Bank project, and recently we did a baseline on that. And there we used a lot of econometrics, but we designed our own formulae for that. So we really took some formulae from the common econometrics, but then again we had to retweet it because the ground situations were very different. So I can share that entire econometrics that we did it, so you can get a feel of it, that what we selected and how the formula we finally said that this is going to be the formula, because these are the things which are factored in. We
And
a
that will be
common
really nice of you.
yeah, I'll surely share that with you.
Anyone else has a question, or anybody would like to ask or get into this more?
I think Abhishek Parik.
Abhishek Parik is there.
Yes, please, Abhishek.
Abhishek, are you there? Abhishek Parekh.
So I think he's having some network issues.
Abhishek, you can type in chat box your question.
Can I have an opportunity to ask a question?
Yes, sure, so you can go ahead.
You were talking about an observation and the various impactful factors when a new disaster appears or some disaster appears. There is a time for a 1 month, 1 week, and a continuous process or observation. That time you also had an example of this corona and pandemic situation. I am such a belief that unless and until we do not have any information related to any disaster, because till now we were having a natural disaster and a man-made disaster, and most of the time natural disaster was like a earthquake or flood or any some major disaster which can be observed or which is known to human entity. Now, when a new disaster appears, how this research can be impactful?
Yeah, uh, when a new disaster appears, then it seems that it's all very alien, but you need to join dots. Like even in COVID situation, we many of our health experts, when it came, uh, they were not being able to give us the right symptoms, and the symptoms were getting changed over every week. So here it is very important to keep on talking with those people who are affected with it. So what are the symptoms that they are seeing? So if the doctors or the health experts are not getting inputs on that area, then they are only giving advisories based on the diagnostics that they are doing for their own patients. So you have to do this rapid assessment, and there could be a group of, like what happened in Bihar. There was a committee formed, and then continuously across Bihar we were seeing symptoms. So each and every uh, civil surgeon of all the districts were given a set of 20 questions and said that just call the people patients and ask whether they got this symptom or not, whether they got this symptom or not, and then you get data from all 38 districts.
Right.
And then it helps you, to come out with, okay, these are the 7 things which are very common, which everybody has reported. So these are the 7 symptoms that can be fixed for COVID. And but since mutations are happening, so this needs to be done on a continuous process. So
So,
that's why I said that 1 week, 1 month, and continuous.
yeah, sure, ma'am. Thank you so much. But I have a certain doubt कि when we go for a newer disaster research, so will our parameters which we are going in a time duration frame, will that be impact? Means if we talk about a 1 month survey or a 1 week survey, will it go in a 6 months or a 1 year survey?
See, when you go for a 1 week survey, the number of questions would be much lesser. When you are going for a 1 month survey, then why you are going for 1 week survey? Because you need to help people immediately.
Yes.
So you have certain things in your mind. People are going without food, people are going without shelter, people need to be excavated from certain areas. You ask such questions, but over a month the numbers, then your questionnaire becomes little elaborated. So when the disaster might be receding, then the problems are more different type, you know and the period is changing. So you are doing all these research during the disaster time. So you are not doing before or after it, you are doing it
Exactly.
continuously.
Sure,
So
sure.
you're getting a lot of data, and that helps, that becomes a institutional memory to the
Right.
disaster management unit. So next time they are prepared that ये 10 question तो पूछने ही पूछने हैं. पिछले बार ये 10 criteria, these were the 10 criteria on which people faced drastically. First ask these questions. You know, over disaster after disaster, you keep on improving. And you become more resilient, you know.
To overcome one disaster, we requires another disaster, right?
Not actually, I didn't mean that, but
Right.
you know, you can't stop disasters.
In just a
You know,
lighter
if in life you have a shock, so but you are more prepared of the next shock.
Sure,
That
sure,
is
sure.
the only.
Thank you so much.
I got a question from
Yeah.
Abhishek Pai.
Yes, ma'am. He is asking, what is the ground reality of the government support programs, as central and state government are very much focused on rural areas?
Again, this is a question which is not much related to surveys. It is more related to how strong the institution is. Now, in some states, you know, you have a very strong rural development department. You have a very strong social welfare department led by senior, officers and people who have expertise in these areas. So it changes from state to state. If your institution is strong enough, if the department is strong enough and they have real good officers, then you know, the government programs are the best. No other, I don't think any other agency can fund as much as a government can fund. So government funding, nowhere you go for any development programs that is running across the country or across the world, the most of the funding is coming from the government agencies. So for development programs, of course, it is government agencies which are funding more, but then you need to really upgrade and also train and also I would say our officers in that manner so that the delivery mechanisms are better. So this is a question, Abhishek, that you're asking, you know, it is relating to so many other factors. It is just not, you can't say that the ground reality of government support programs might be, are very, I would say, not equal in all states. You'll have disparity. Again, you have disparity just because the people who are dealing with those programs are very important.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your experiences with us and inspiring us with your words. We hope to look upon your work and achieve success like you in future. Now, I would request our respected Associate Professor FMS IRM, Dr. Kajal Sitlani, ma'am, for the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Tanvi. Thank you so much, Mahua ma'am, for being here today with us, enlightening us and the students on this particular topic in very simple words. I'm basically teaching this subject CSR. So when this topic came into for study for getting the students prepared for the same, I thought that there should be some guest lecture, and I've heard your session earlier also. So I thought that you will be the best person who can explain them in a practical way about the things that are going on in practice and how you can relate it to the theoretical portion. So it will provide a better guidance to them, and your knowledge, the practical knowledge that you're having, and combined and club with the theoretical aspects will definitely guide them and help them to work in their summer internship projects, or even if they will be joining some of the other organization in the field of research and development, then definitely your guidance is going to help them. So thank you so much from FMS IRM. Thank you so much on the behalf of FMS IRM, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the kind words. I hope I did justice to the subject, and all the students have, they can reach out to me. I have shared my email ID there. So if they have any questions, they can reach out to me. Thank you.
Sure, ma'am. And if you can provide that report, like regarding that matrix so I can also help them out like how their things really work.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.